Hello, welcome to the Simon Chardiet New York Stories. And that was Blues for the Ukraine. That's over the bones of What Is This Thing Called Love by Cole Porter. But it's Blues for the Ukraine, 16 bars of that. So anyway, this is going to be the last episode. I'm just kind of tying it up of Simon Chardiet's New York Stories. This is going to be, I think, 48. So I'm hoping people enjoying it, and I'm hoping some people watch it. Anyway, I'm just gonna mop things up here. All right, things on surfing. First of all, see some cool animals out there surfing Rockaway, right in the city limits in New York, right outside the mouth of New York Harbor. So sometimes some funny stuff comes in because it's the harbor mouth. Like this is many years ago. It's not a long time after I started surfing, but I was out there, and it was a summer day, but it was like there was nobody around. It was really weird. The surfing used to not be life. Sorry about that. We had an interruption. I took off on this wave and pulled into a couple of steps towards the nose, to speed the board up, coming down the face of the wave. I remember it was about 4 foot, my favorite kind of wave height, about 4 foot. Right in the curl, like right in my line in the curl, was a giant deep end, but like a deep end for a very large adult person. It was like out to here, and it was like it wasn't a new deep end. Let's put it that way. And I saw it, and I was like, I gave in Yiddish you call it kvitch, like like I knew I copped right to where it was a fucking deep end, right. The nose of my board goes under because I was forward trim. So the nose of the board goes under, the whole board goes over, and I get pitched forward like Superman style, face first into this fucking shit-filled adult diaper. Like, that's the second worst wipeout I ever had. All right. And here's the worst wipeout I ever had. Uh, Surfing the old Rockaway when they had all the big wooden pylons still sticking up out of the water. And ironically enough, I was surfing right in front of where I lived. It was a very big day, and it had teeth on it. It was a very long period swell. I think that what they were saying, it was like 10 feet at 17 seconds or something. So it was heavy, and bunch of people got hurt. I saw one guy had his nose smashed in, another guy, a couple people had dislocated shoulders. I mean, it was dangerous. So of course, like a schmuck, I go out. I'm out there, and I catch a wave, and I'm like, yeah, this is great, man. I'm stoked. I want some more. I'm paddling back out. Now I get caught. I was too far inside because I broke a couple of boards in the preceding years. I didn't want my board to break. I figured I'll just take my leash off, push the board in, and I'll swim back in. So I send my board in, and I'm trying to swim under the wave, and it gets me. It's a 17-second swell is going to come up off the bottom of the ocean, right? So it's coming up the bottom. So my arm literally goes into this band of energy, and I get picked up and over. So I'm at the bottom of the ocean because I swam to the bottom. So I come from the bottom of the ocean up to the surface, up over the top on the fucking barrel, and I felt my whole right arm that's already been out of the socket 5 times. I just felt it go like snap. And then I go over the falls. I get fucking slammed off the bottom like a ping pong ball. I'm like, oh shit. So I have to swim to the top with one arm, and I'm like, my arm doesn't work. And I was like, I swam in with one arm. I had to take a bunch more waves on the head, and I was holding it. Now my shoulder is up here. My shoulder's up here. My arm and my shoulder, all shoulder joints up here. And I'm like, and it kind of fucking hurts. And I go on the boardwalk, and I'm like, maybe I just tweaked it, and I can, do this, do this. I want to go back. I want some of these fucking waves, man. I got my board, right? And I was like, I want to surf more, but I couldn't move my arm, and my whole shoulder was up by my ear. I mean, I was like disfigured, And some guy on the boardwalk was trying to mansplain to me that I need to start studying yoga and stretch it, and it'll go back in. And I'm like, I really. So I realized, wait, I was off. I'm like, God damn it, I can't fucking surf. I wanted some more waves. And there's an ambulance, and I go up to the guy, and he's eating Chinese food. He's like this guy like this. And I go, excuse me, I think I just dislocated my shoulder. Can you take me to the hospital? And the guy's eating Chinese food, and he goes, get a cab. And he can fucking like pork fried rice in his mouth, right? So I'm lucky. Katrina and Sarah, two surfer buddies of mine, they took my board back to my house, and Jim took me to the hospital, and they gave me morphine, all this shit. I remember these two big doctors, they took me to this hospital. Now it's closed, right? Peninsula Hospital, but it took them 2 hours to put my arm in. I mean, I was fucked up. They gave me morphine and like lidocaine. It still hurt like shit. Then one of the doctors, he had this big spike full of morphine, and he's standing there, he's talking to me, and obviously he takes about half the spike and he just sprays it right into his mouth and licks his lips, and then he sticks the rest into my shoulder, and he's licking his lips. And they put around me the sheets. It went right. It sounded like if you took a fucking picket fence like this, like when it went back in, right? So, oh gee, I'm on full screen now. I've done that. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. But so anyway, long story. So I called baby mama. I call my ex. I told her I was in the hospital. I got her. She goes, oh my God, you got hurt bad. I could tell by your voice, because remember, she remembers when I got my nipple torn off, and when I would get the fuck kicked out of me at a show or something. So she knows when I'm hurt. And so anyway, that's the long story. That I woke up, they gave me this bottle with fucking 90 oxycontins in it, and like, I'm an ex-junkie, I don't want to be fucking with that. They gave me the bottle, and then I woke up the next morning, and I was dope sick from what they gave me in the hospital. I woke up, I was like, oh, like I was dope sick from the fucking morphine. The doctor, he was getting nice, man. He was like, whatever he gave me, he was taking half for himself. So that's the worst wipeout I have had. So because getting caught, the worst wipeout in surfing. That's the one I fear the worst. So, all right, those are my wipeouts. The diaper. I used to take my kids down to the beach, and whatever jalopy I was driving, the Dart, the fancy schmancy Dodge van or artillery, and we used to just go down to the beach, and I would just give them a couple toys to tell them don't drown, and I'd leave them on the beach, and I'd go surfing. Try doing that today, they'd have like CPS after you. But that they made a lot of friends. Like they made friends with Shrinky Dink and Johnny Siciliano and all the other kids that were their age. Um, so so you know, and then in the Bar Sinister's days, we used to have some crazy people come in. The Tree Man, and he used to see him all over. He used to cut pieces off of trees and bushes and tie them to his head. And he would wear like a burlap bag or a plastic bag for clothes, or burlap like a onion sack for clothes. And he would go around, and he would go into every club, and he was Tree Man. Everybody loved him. He was a really nice guy. He'd come to the club and ask everybody for money, but we didn't care. We used to give him money too, you know, or buy him a drink or something. So one time I was like, Tree Man, you gotta sing with us. You gotta get up here and sing. And so Tree Man gets up on stage with all the trees tied in his head, and he started rapping. He did a hip hop thing, so we backed him up. You know, it did like Jimmy Nolan, like, and he was rapping for a while. He didn't really have any teeth, but Tree Man sat in with us. So that was a lot of fun, you know. And then and then another thing from around that time was I was playing this gig out in California, and all of a sudden, who comes up on stage and starts playing with the band on drums? Earl Palmer, the Earl Palmer. If you don't know who he is, look him up. He was New Orleans guy, played in the marching society, second line, but then he's on all the great Fats Domino records, all the great Smiley Lewis. He's on all the Little Richard. That's him and all the Little Richard stuff. Keep a Knockin', everything. Okay, and tons of other records. I don't want to be talking out of my ass, but I know he was on them records. And then he moved to California, and he was in the Wrecking Crew, so he was on like every record. All right, so along with let's say along with John Gurion and Ralph Humphreys, he was like the number one call. Sandy Nelson, he was like the number one call, like Hollywood first call drummer. He was in the Wrecking Crew with like Carol Kay, Barney Kessel, Tommy Tedesco, Leon Russell, all those people playing on Don Randy, all those people that played on those every fucking record. And you know, he got up and played with us. He was a fantastic bebop jazz drummer. That was his real love, you know. And so just running along, I want to just tell you how, you know, I don't got any, you know, I'll tell you how neoliberal, late stage, winner take all, might makes right capitalism, how it's hollowed out shit. 25, 30 years ago, kids, all right? Now remember, my parents is dead. They died penniless. I don't got no trust fund, no inheritance, no nothing. I've made a living off music, or bike messenger, or surf instructor my whole life, right? Lived by my wits. But in the 90s, I could still live in Manhattan on the Lower East Side, own a jalopy car, because back then cars, you could fucking fix them yourself. You know, they didn't have computers. You could tune them up. You could put plugs, caps, rotor, you know, change the alternator yourself, flush the radiator yourself out in the street, you know. I could live in Manhattan, have a jalopy car, and survive as a musician. Like, okay, to where nowadays I still survive, but I drag all my equipment on the subway on a hand truck at my age. Like the idea of being able to afford a car, or the tolls. The toll used to be $3 to go to Jersey, or to Verrazano was $3. So like, this is how, like, you know, like, hey, everybody should make a buck. Everybody's got to eat, but you know, like, fuck capitalism. It's oligarchy. We live in a fucking rapacious oligarchy where we are just an expendable commodity. That's why I got such a chip on my shoulder when I don't get treated good in the music business. All right, and then moving right along. Okay, here's some of the last things. You know, like I have my band's a two-piece band now, Simon and JJ, but I've been fucking with the two-piece bands for like 25 years because I played with the Flat Duo Jets, good friends with Dexter and Crow, and they gave me the idea. So like one time I had this bass player, he's a really nice kid, but he's a kid, he was probably 16 or 17. I was trying to teach him how to play, and like I just didn't go pick him up. I would have had to go all the way out to like uh Nutley, New Jersey to pick him up. So I just didn't go to Nutley. I just went straight to Boston and played without him. So uh, we were touring and we played. We were me and Chucky Raven were on the road and we played. We used to go down south and play like all over the south. So when we were down there with Chuck, we used to bill Chuck as Dominic Pizzarelli, the Black Italian, and so he would play the part. He would pretend like he really was Dominic Pizzarelli, the Black Italian. So we'd be down there playing, and he would be like, "Hey, it's Dominic on the drums, Dominic Pizzarelli, the Black Italian." And Chuck would be like, "Hey, what you gonna do about it?" And people believed us. They were like, "Hey, Dominic, look, it's Dominic." And he was like Dominic Pizzarelli. The So we get to this place in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. We've been driving and driving. Remember, we're a long way from home. I walk in, the club owner's there. I was like, "Hey, man." He goes, What are you doing in town?" I was like, "You booked us to play your club tonight." He goes, "No, I didn't." I go, "Yeah, I called you like last month." He goes, but it's heavy metal night." And there was all these guys with like spandex and poodle haircuts and leopard skin on with pointy guitars and you know, like going like, I'm like, oh shit. And he was in an alcoholic blackout when he booked us. So I'm driving back to New York and I said to Chucky, "This ain't rock and roll. This is driving." And then, so this is going to be almost 10 years ago now. We have plenty of hurricanes out here. You get all kinds of different waves. Sometimes they're good, sometimes they suck. Sometimes you get good waves off of hurricanes, uh, or decent waves. And we had this Hurricane Sandy coming now. The year before, we had this hurricane. There was all this hype about it, and then it kind of just blew right over, and they shut the subway down, and the electricity was out, but we didn't flood out, and there was really good waves. Not too big, not too small. And I was like, fuck it, I want to surf this shit. So I didn't evacuate, and this time, forget about it. I went surfing the day before, like the first day of the hurricane, Sunday, and it was like the cops were trying to throw people out of the beach, and the waves were pretty big. I was a little scared, but I waited till the cop car went right by, and I ran out there. And usually when it's really big, the first time I will deliberately not get all the way out. I'll kind of get halfway out, let myself get hit by a few waves and pushed back in. I just want to see how much force it's going to hit me with. Remember, I got that bad shoulder too, and so I usually, so I got washed back in and I went out again, and I figured, fuck it, I'm going to jail, but nobody got arrested. I got some really good waves, but they were scary. Scary fucking waves. I took 3 waves, made them, and then I went in. I was like, this is too fucking sketchy. After this, I'm not. I'm a. The next day, all hell broke loose. The sun. It just got dark out. I'm walking down to the power went out. There's no electricity. I'm walking down to the beach to check on the conditions, and all of a sudden, I hear all this noise and shit, and I see this. The water starts coming up. It was already up to my knees. Now it's coming up to my waist and then my stomach. And I'm just wearing like this and a hoodie and a yellow rain slicker and short pants and no shoes. Because I never, I don't walk around with shoes very much in Rockaway. So I'm like, oh shit. And there was this big rumbling, and I look, and it's like, and then I see there's a car in it, but it kind of looks like this soup, this stew. What it was it was the boardwalk that had gotten completely destroyed, and cars and street lights all in this big mass getting pushed at me by the ocean, and the water's coming up. So I was like, I turned around and there was like brown sewer water coming out of every fucking sewer grating, like at high pressure, like a geyser. And I had the presence of mind, step carefully, because if I step on anything and cut my foot, I'm dead. I'm gonna die alone in the dark of tetanus, you know. So I made it back to my house, where I used to live. It was still dry land, and I just told everybody, listen, man, it's on, party's over, it's on, get busy, because everybody was like, yay, hurricane, let's go drinking. You know, everybody was there, like, you know, that was the whole thing. That's like my father and my uncles used to do too. When we would get hit by a hurricane, like they would just drink all, stay up all night and drink and sing songs in Spanish. So we had a cavalier attitude about this shit. But not this time. The water started coming up, and I'm trying to get my guitars and my amps upstairs, right? And my landlord comes in, shines a flashlight. He goes, "You better get out of here, bro. The water's coming up." And he goes, "Don't forget your bike." And he points at my bike. And my landlord saved my beloved fucking track bike. I hung it up in the rafters. And then I had to bail out the bathroom window and go kind of across the alley to the next house. And they were shining the light. And I had a guitar, and I had my Bach book and a toothbrush over my head like this in a bag. I packed a bag. I had like some nuts and granola bars and a bottle of water and shit, and my toothbrush, because I try to take care. And I'm like kind of half wading, half swimming, and it's like 90-mile-an-hour wind. I get into my neighbor's house, go upstairs, and I'm like, well, if I'm gonna die tonight, I'm gonna die playing Bach. I just stayed up all night playing Bach, which I was just doing. That's why I'm doing this now, because Bach is kicking the fucking shit out of me, man. I just need a little break. So I played Bach all night. In the middle of the night, all of a sudden we hear crick, 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 boom, and this whole fucking giant tree falls over, and it just misses the house. It goes right by and hits the fence of the house next door. It was like a big fucking, like, I don't know what kind of trees grow out here, but it was a big old tree. It broke in half, so it almost took the house out. So the next morning, the tide goes out. I climbed through the window of my house. My upright bass floated from the back room into the bathroom. So it floated there. So the water came out. It's like, you know, pretty destroyed, just fucked. And my Lemmy book, his biography, White Line Fever, the first thing I climbed through my bathroom window, my house is destroyed, and there's Lemmy. He floated in next to my upright bass. So Lemmy was there looking out for me, you know. And thank God. The year before, I had gone to see probably the last tour when he was still in good health, before he got really sick, when he was still really good. So Lemmy was kind of looking out for me. And I lost like a lot of shit, you know. I was able to repair most of my musical instruments, got repaired. A couple of them, I have like one of them was just, I fixed it, but it was never the same again. I wound up replacing, and everything else got fixed. But then uh, it's another long story, because I had this amp guy that tried to rip me off on this repair, off on this money. You know, I wasn't having it. I got the money from him. I'm not going to get into this further, but I kind of surprised him in Brooklyn and got my money back for him trying to rip me off. But I just don't really enjoy being in those kind of dynamics with people. I'm into fucking love, not hate, you know. I'd rather, you know, but I had to, and then my neighbor from across the street was like, let's go down and watch the looting, because the minute the fucking water went out, everybody started looting. So we go down, and these kids are running down my block with like frozen chickens and frozen Popeyes. Like, what are you gonna do with that? What are you gonna do with frozen chicken? You can't, you know, and TV sets and shit. So we get to the kind of shabby ass strip mall right by my house, and there's always people looting, and this cop car pulls up. I'm standing there looking at it, and the cops are saying something through the bullhorn, and all of a sudden these guys just pull out and start shooting at the cops. The problem is that we're between them and the cops, so we got to hit the deck. We crawl back. We're like, fuck this, man. I got enough on my plate. I don't need to get shot today. Fuck this. So it's like, like I said, I've never fired a gun in my life. I have no military training, and I'm not I'm a person that will stand up for themselves, but I'm not a tough guy. I'm 5'3", but the first thing, I've been trapped in the middle of gunfire a few times in my life, and it's that sound that it makes. It's like fucked up. So then I was living in Jay Brown's garage and trying to repair my shit, and you know, luckily the garage was also a recording studio. So I just tried to hang on to my sanity. I was kind of displaced and living with like no shower and no hot water and no heat for like 7 months. But uh, that was the end of the old New York, because everybody got forced out of there. Like Slats spent the whole night in the top of his camper with the water up to like halfway up it, like trapped in there. Like, oh my God, everybody lost everything. And it was kind of like the combine and the neoliberals, that they used it as a ethnic and class cleansing a Rockaway. Like a lot of us poor people got kind of pushed out of this neighborhood, and they kind of used it for like ethnic cleansing and class cleansing. I mean, so they did try to gentrify it, as much as they could. And that's why I was always die hipster scum. I realized that what hipsters are is like they're the fake bohemian affectation of like winner take all, might makes right capitalist culture. Like they are having the affectations of the counterculture, but they don't have to pay the penalty that people like, hey, I don't feel sorry for myself or anything, but like I said to myself when I was like 7 or 8 years old, I want to be a professional musician and I want to be a surfer, and I just did whatever it took. You know what I mean? And these people are like, they monetize anything. They monetize their own fucking mother. It's just one of them things. So it was never, New York was never the same after that. Like I said, New York lost its soul when they went from the tokens to the Metro cards. The tokens was like the fucking soul of New York, like the way a communion wafer is supposed to be the blood of Christ. A subway token was the fucking blood of New York, in a way a Metro card is not. And so that's kind of the end of it, because I said this is about the old New York. Now we're living in the new New York, ain't so bad. I mean, it's like a fucking mall, basically. The subway is the fifth borough. So many people are living in the subway now. There's like rampant homelessness here, and there's a certain amount of violence and sketchiness. You got to watch your back in New York again. Who keeps us safe? We keep us safe. But those are my stories about the old New York. And the epilogue is like, Charles was in the hospital. He'd been in a nursing home. Then he was back in the hospital. I went to see him. He was so skinny, he couldn't walk. And he said to me, we were talking about things, and he still had his wicked, like, he said to me, play all the things you are. Anyways, play all the things you are. Then he said, play Cherokee. Anyway, so he said that, and then he looks at me and he goes, I want to die. I was like, Charles. I was shocked. He looked at me, right? I want to die. I can't walk. I can't talk, and I can't play my motherfucking drums. I was like, Charles, I don't know what to say. You know, I understand, but I'm gonna miss you, and I gotta say, you've been like a father to me, Charles. You know, my father died young, and all these years, my father, I love you. He goes, I love you too, Simon. I'll see you. And he died that night. Then I got a call from Greg Poulos, the Worms manager. She said, you better get up here to the Bronx. Greg's, you know, I talked to Greg on the phone a bunch of times, and a bunch of times I was going to pick him up and drive him to a gig or whatever, but he'd kind of back out at the last minute, and then I couldn't get a hold of him. He was hard to reach, you know, and I feel bad, but I also had, you know, I was dealing with all these bands and musicians, and they're really difficult and uncooperative and hard to reach. So it's like if I spend 4 hours a day trying to reach people on the phone, after a while I hit the wall, you know, and I try to reach him so many times. It turns out his girlfriend cut him off from everybody and wasn't letting. He'd always get these girlfriends that would like take control of his life and cut him off from all his friends, and this was the case. So anyway, his mom called me, and the next morning I got up, and me and Raven went running up to the Bronx. He was gone. We went to the hospital. He was still lying there. You know, I was too late. I'll always feel bad about that the rest of my life, because I got home late at night and I found out he was on his way out, and it was just like I just came back from bike messengering and schlepping and shit. I was like, I'll just get up in the morning and go. And I did, but it was too late, you know. And I gave him a kiss on his forehead. He was cold, you know, and he was such a handsome guy, no matter what. He gave us everything that he had to give us, man, the Worms, you know. You know, and then Tim Hill, same day I get a phone call. Tim Hill got me this apartment. He talked the landlord into renting it to me. I get a phone call from Tim's wife. Tim's in the hospital. He doesn't feel well. He had another epileptical seizure, and so she goes, I know he'd really appreciate it if you visited him. So I was like, I ought to go visit him. And I thought I'm just going to go there, you know, be in the hospital. I'd visit him in the hospital before he had epilepsy. Yeah, he'll well, you know, he'll be breaking my balls. He'll make some kind of joke. We'll hang out, shoot the shit for a while. But I get there and he's dead. It's like he just like that. He went, man. So these are people like Charles Otis was like my father. Him and Curtis Fields were the first two musicians I knew that didn't take drugs. If it wasn't for their example, I wouldn't be here today talking to you. You know, Greg bankrolled the Worms. You know, got us off the ground. You know, the Worms was only 5 years of my life. It was the 5 years that made me as a fucking guy in New York. You know, And Tim Hill, he's one of my best friends here. The guy always had my back. You know, he's just one of these guys, like, no phone call, no nothing, just Simon. He'd be outside, he'd just come in and shoot the shit, give him a cup of coffee, no, um, surf with him. And so I just wanted to leave it. I'm leaving it on this. I'm leaving things on a sad note, you know. But I'm not really doing any justice until I say thank you to these people, these three great New Yorkers. And so that's the last Simon New York story. And hey, we're in the New York now. Let's fucking enjoy it while we're still alive, man. All right, I gotta go back to J.S. Bach beating my ass. Oh God. And thank you. Thanks everyone.